Ankalaev, Błachowicz. Guys, who do you got? One of the first things that I do, I go to DraftKings Sportsbook, and I want to know what the experts are saying, right? Like, it's one thing to share your opinion, of which I do all the time. It's a whole nother thing to back that. Let me tell you guys something interesting. Ankalaev's a favorite. I don't know that that surprised you. It doesn't surprise me, but he's a negative 265. Blachowicz is a plus 225. Hold those numbers. Just freeze right there. Back to the tape up. 14 days. Same guys we're fighting. Wasn't scheduled for 5 rounds. Wasn't a main event. Wasn't for the world title. It was the same guys fighting. And Ankalaev was a negative 210. How come? What about that? If I was to look at that and put my analytics cap on versus DraftKings odds when it was 3 rounds to 5 rounds. Open for interpretation. I come to the opinion that you think that those last 2 rounds matter, and I'm wondering where that opinion comes from. Jan Blachowicz has gone 5 rounds, and he has demonstrated that he can do that. He is named the Polish Hammer I don't agree with the odds, guys. You want me to get right down to it? I don't agree with the odds. I think that Ankalaev is a favorite. I do see that. Negative 265? I'm telling you, this is a meaningful amount. That's not 3-1, but that is what I will largely, as a colloquialism, I will refer to in a broad stroke as 3-1. I'm getting real specific with you guys right now because I'm juxtaposing it against what the difference was 14 days ago, aside from the fact it wasn't a main event. What do you make about that? I mean, you want to take these intangibles and they absolutely matter? Main events and who can deal with them easily, in my opinion, goes to Blachowicz. When's Ankalaev even been in a main event? He might have. You might have an answer to that question, but I can't recall it. I can't remember Blachowicz fighting in recent memory. I don't believe that Blachowicz has fought since the night that he fought Luke Rockhold, a world champion. I don't think that he's fought in less than a main event. I know that he goes 5 rounds. I mean, right off the top of my head, he did it with Adesanya. So I would just think if you're going into 5 rounds, that you're going to find favor Blachowicz. Now you've got to deal with main event spot. How about the pressures? How about the world championship? What does that do to you? Now that's anybody's ball game. You want to talk about a guy that's been there and done that great, you've got a really good argument. You want to talk about a guy that hasn't climbed that mountain and therefore he's hungry to do it, go ahead. You got 6-1, half a dozen ever. I got a swing of close to $55 at DraftKings because of this. So I am going to ask you what it is you see. So if you think those extra 2 rounds are relevant, tell me why. I'm just curious. It would seem as though if anybody is going to go 4-5, what we call championship rounds, it's going to be the former champion. It would seem. And I want to tell you one thing. I do think Ankalaev should be the favorite. I really do. I had him when it was 3 rounds. I got him when 5 rounds. Guys, you got a close fight here. What are you proposing that's going to happen for that statement I just said not to be true? And a lot of the money that's coming in is coming in with the opinion that Ankalaev is going to take him down and keep him there. And then I would have to turn back on you and go, with what evidence do you have? And you're going to smash it in my face and you're going to say Dagestan. You want to know how I know what you're going to say? I literally have had 5 of these conversations before I sat down in front of you guys. And you're going to talk about Dagestan. I'm going to just ask you. I understand that. I understand where it comes. I understand everybody that Ali Abdelaziz represents as a great grappler, but I'm going to come back and ask you to give me historical evidence from Ankalaev's fight where you have seen that. Not only his ability to get the takedown, but moreover to keep him there. Can I remind you? Blachowicz wasn't known for his wrestling, and he didn't have an amateur background. Like, he didn't enter the cadet championships, the junior championships, the European championships. But he did surprise us, and we all gave him that due the night that he fought Adesanya. He not only took Adesanya down, something Kelvin Gastelum had a really hard time with, a great wrestler. Why I bring that up? Something Whitaker never got done. Very good wrestler. Something Yoel Romero got done one time in 25 minutes and didn't keep him there. These are really rare things. So when Blachowicz is able to get that position, great. You got a good takedown, didn't know you have it. When he could keep him there, so you're talking about a different art. One is wrestling, but one is grappling. You're talking about a different art, and it was an arm that we just didn't know Blachowicz had, and we gave him a lot of credit. He ended up in the wake of us thinking, okay, hey, he's got this great skill set with the wrestling. He's coming out talking about the Polish hammer, and he's going to put these hands on you, and he was starting to build that up in the media, and it was a little bit of a rope-a-dope. Nate Diaz is classic for this. To come back to that thought, he ends up ending up underneath Glover. And he couldn't move. He got pinned down, and it cost him his championship. But DraftKings has moved the line. Ankalaev was the favorite to start with when it was 3 rounds. It wasn't a main event. There wasn't the same pressure. Maybe there wasn't the same prize. But I don't think that bettors factor that in. I really don't. I think the one tangible that you have is just simply the 5 rounds. And you're saying that Ankalaev is more likely to win. You've got me curious on that. I never predict a stoppage, broad stroke statement. Anytime I say I never predict, of course, but my mind doesn't go there. Even in my own contests, I would always be factoring for the worst case scenario. And so did Clayton Ayers when we were training. I mean, we were prepared to be there until the absolute last minute. And I feel pretty comfortable in telling you guys, Blachowicz and Ankalaev is not going to go the distance. Now, when you have a shootout, when you have 2 guys that are going to trade like that, you have some really interesting angles from Ankalaev. That's not a comment you can give to very many guys. Like, you would give that to Conor McGregor, would be a great example. Freddie Roach gave that compliment to BJ Penn. Wait, many years ago, Freddie Roach had listed BJ Penn as the single best boxer in all of MMA, but he talked about his angles. I mean, he's hitting you from spots that other people just don't do. Ankalaev does that. Yuri Prochazka does that. And it's a lot to deal with, but when you've got the power of Blachowicz, and now you got to talk about the option of what if this isn't going well? If Ankalaev is sticking, and he hits hard, he hits up, but he's sticking and he's moving much more than Blachowicz is coming in with 1 shot. That is amazingly risky to part with, in my opinion. And we go right down the middle, and guys, we'll split them. I mean, let me remind you, no further back than DraftKings over the weekend, as it had to do with Sergi versus Tai Tuivasa, which was very clear on prop bets that should this thing go to a KO and a finish, Tuivasa's doing a shooty on top of the octagon. It's a risky game, man, when you're in a shootout, particularly when you're taking on a guy called the Polish Hammer. I am predicting Ankalaev, in all fairness. But you're predicting that he comes in grappling heavy, and I'm wondering where you get that opinion. I'd be very curious if you answered that for me. I like the action. I mean, I got to tell you, if I'm going public and I'm putting the chael curse on somebody, I see something special. I do see something special with Ankalaev.
We go again.